Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You're joining us because, well, you need solid, practical knowledge and probably need it pretty quickly, especially in fields like welding inspection, right? Getting a real grip on complex stuff fast isn't just nice to have, it's essential. And that's what we do here. We're aiming to be your shortcut to getting really well informed. So today, we're actually kicking off something new, something really important, our CSWIP 3.1 exam prep series. Our whole goal in this deep dive, simple. We want to help you get ready for that CSWIP 3.1 Welding Inspector Exam. We'll be tackling actual multi-choice questions. But look, we're not just going to give you the answers. No, we want to dig into the why behind them, the key ideas, so you really get it, not just memorize it.
Exactly. And that's what's really valuable here, I think. We're trying to move beyond just, learning by rote. We want to help you build a much deeper, stronger understanding, because knowing why something's right, that helps it stick, not just for an exam, but for when you're actually out there doing the job. It helps you become a more effective inspector, more confident, too. It builds that intuition.
Absolutely. Well said. Okay, so let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. First question today, getting into the real basics of inspection.
The purpose of welder qualification.
All right, question 1 asks, the principal purpose of a welder qualification test is two. And here are your choices. A, test the skill of the welder. B, assess the weldability of the materials. C, decide which NDT methods to use. Give the welder practice before doing production welding.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at these, if you're new to this, a few might sound reasonable, right?
Yeah.
They all kind of relate to welding.
They do touch on related areas.
So how do we nail down the principal purpose? What's the absolute core reason for this test?
That's a great point. They do overlap a bit in the broader context. But the correct answer, the main reason, is definitely A. Test the skill of the welder. You see, these qualification tests, they're designed very specifically. They're standardized, objective ways to check if a particular welder, if they can consistently make good, sound welds. We need to know, can they handle the process? Do they have the dexterity, the control, the knowledge to follow a procedure and get it right?
So it's really focused on that individual person's ability.
Precisely. It's about confirming their competence. Now, if you look at the others, like B, material weldability, super important, yes, but that's more material science. That usually falls under procedure qualification, not welder skill testing.
Okay.
Option C, choosing NDT methods. That's an inspection planning thing. An engineer or inspector decides that. It's not about the welder skill itself.
Right, different stage entirely.
And giving practice. Practice is vital, of course, but that's training. It's not the formal qualification test itself. This qualification is a formal proof, that this person is competent for the job, for production work, which directly links to quality, to safety, right from the very start.
Got it. So it really boils down to checking that one person's hands-on skill in executing that specific procedure. It's about certifying the operator. That's the key distinction.
Exactly right. Assessing human performance in a controlled way. You can't really replace that.
Okay, that clears things up nicely. Let's shift gears now. We've qualified the person. Now let's talk about something that controls the weld's actual insides, the microstructure.
Understanding heat input units.
Right. Second question for you. Which of the following units is used to express heat input? Your options are A, joules, a B, nmm2T, kilo, J, mm. Now, this feels like more than just picking a unit, doesn't it? This kilojoule, millipm. It seems critical for controlling the metal itself. Why is this specific unit, kilojoule millimem, so important for an inspector to understand? What's it really telling us?
You've absolutely hit on something key there. The correct answer is indeed D, kilojoule mm, and you're right, it's not just about the unit itself. Heat input is, it's massively important in welding. It has a huge effect on the final properties, the metallurgy of the weld metal, and crucially, the heat affected zone, the HAZ.
Okay.
So, kilojoule mm, what does it mean? It's kilojoules of electrical energy put in for every millimeter of weld length. And why that specific measure? Because it's essentially our control knob for how quickly that weld cools down.
Oh, the cooling rate.
Exactly. Think about it. Too much heat input, meaning a high kilojoule m value, leads to slower cooling. That might give you things like coarse grains, maybe lower strength, more distortion, stuff you don't want.
Okay, makes sense.
On the flip side, too little heat input, a low kilojoule means very fast cooling. That can cause its own problems like maybe lack of fusion or creating brittle structures, especially in certain steels. So managing that heat input, using this kilojoule m unit, helps us avoid those bad microstructures and make sure the weld has the right properties, the right integrity. And just quickly on the others, joules is just basic energy, no length dimension. NM-2 is pressure or stress, completely different. And JM-2, C, That'd be energy per area, not per length, which is how we track heat input along the weld seam. So yeah, kilojmillim really captures that fundamental control parameter.
So that 1 unit, kilojmillim, it's not just energy. It's like a direct instruction to the metal's grain structure as it cools. It's pretty powerful. Shows how vital precision is, way beyond just how the surface looks.
Absolutely. It's the science underpinning the strength.
Okay, so from that microscopic level, let's zoom back out to what you can actually see. The first line of defense, usually. Visual inspection.
Visual inspection of a root bead.
All right, question 3. When visually inspecting the root bead of a single V-butt weld, it should be checked for. Options: A, lack of root penetration. B, HAZ, hardness.C, tungsten inclusions.D. So visual inspection, often the first step. For this specific case, the root bead of a single V-butt weld. What's the number one thing, the absolute must check for an inspector visually? And why is it more critical than other potential issues you might see?
Yeah, this is a really crucial one for day-to-day inspection. The main thing you're looking for visually on that root bead, it's got to be a lack of root penetration. Think about it. That root bead is the absolute foundation of the entire weld joint.
Right, the very bottom.
Exactly.
Right.
And if it doesn't properly fuse into the parent metal, or if it doesn't penetrate right through the joint thickness as it should, well, you've got a major weak spot right there. Visually, you might see a gap or maybe an edge that just isn't melted in properly at the bottom. It makes the whole joint vulnerable to failing under load.
Okay, so it's fundamentally structural.
It is. Now, slag, option D. Yeah, you can get slag, and you definitely need to check for it and make sure it's removed between passes, but lack of penetration is a structural flaw that weakens the whole thing from the get-go.
And the others.
Tungsten inclusions, C, that's mostly a TIG welding issue. You might see it, sure, but it's not usually the primary structural worry for the root itself like penetration is. And HAZ, hardness, B. That's important, but you just can't see hardness. That needs specific testing, like a hardness tester. It's not a visual check item.
Gotcha.
So it really raises a key point for you to think about. Why is that root pass so vital? What makes lack of penetration such a serious problem in the real world?
It's a great question to pause on. Why is it so critical? Is it because if you have a flaw there, it's just really hard to fix later without grinding the whole thing out?
That's definitely part of it, yes. Repairing root defects is often major rework.
Or maybe because it takes the initial hit when stress is applied?
That's also true, and probably even more critical. The root is where that initial connection is made. It dictates the load-bearing capacity right at the joint interface. Lack of penetration creates what we call a stress riser, a natural weak point. It makes the weld much more likely to fail through fatigue or brittle fracture. It just undermines the whole connection.
Okay, that really drives home why it's the inspector's first critical visual check. Right, speaking of critical checks, let's talk about the standards, the rule book for doing these inspections properly.
European standard for visual examination.
Okay, question 4 is, the European standard for NBE of fusion welds by visual examination is just 4, and the options are A, EN 15614, B, EN 15647, C, EN 19647 standards. They're the absolute bedrock of consistency and quality in welding, aren't they?
Absolutely essential.
So for visual examination of fusion welds specifically, there's one European standard an inspector just has to know. Which one is it, and why is knowing it so non-negotiable?
You're spot on about the importance of standards. They ensure everyone's working to the same level. Quality assurance, legal compliance, it's huge. And the correct standard here, the one specifically for visual NDE of fusion welds, is DEN 10637. This is the document that lays out the procedures, the requirements, the acceptance criteria, everything you need for doing a proper, thorough visual inspection. It ensures that when one inspector finds something, another inspector looking at the same thing using the same standard should come to a similar conclusion. It brings that uniformity.
Right, consistency.
Exactly. Now, just to differentiate, EN 15614, that's about qualifying the welding procedure itself. Testing the recipe, if you like.
Yeah.
EN 2560 specifies covered electrodes for MMA welding, so that's about the consumables.
Right.
And EN 287C. That was historically for welder qualification testing, but it's mostly been replaced by the EN ISO 9606 series now. So you see, each standard has a very specific job. Sticking to EN 19637 for visual means your inspection isn't just a subjective look. It's structured, it's compliant, it gives real confidence in the weld.
So it's not just what you look for, but the formal how you look for it. Making sure visual inspection is a reliable, repeatable process.
Especially internationally.
Precisely. It standardizes that human element, which is key.
Right. And speaking of reliability, Sometimes, even with fancy NDT, you still need to, well, break things to really see what's going on inside.
Destructive testing for weld quality.
Okay, our final question for this deep dive. Nick break and fillet fracture tests are used for assessing. Options A, weld quality, B, weld metal ductility, C, weld metal toughness, D, resistance to fracture. Nick break, fillet fracture. That would sound pretty destructive. Seems almost odd when we're trying to make things strong. What are these tests actually showing us about the weld? Why are they still such a fundamental tool for inspectors? Yes, they do sound a bit aggressive, don't they? But their purpose is very specific. The answer here is A, weld quality. Both these tests, nick break and fillet fracture, they're types of destructive testing, yes. And their main aim is to give you a quick, visual, macroscopic look at the overall integrity, basically, the quality of a sample weld. They're designed specifically to reveal any significant internal flaws that you might not see just looking at the surface.
Okay, so how do they work, roughly?
Well, the nick break test, you usually do that on a butt weld sample. You cut notches into it near the weld in HAZ, and then you literally break it open along those notches. That fractured surface then shows you, plain as day, any big internal problems like porosity, slag trapped inside, maybe areas where the weld didn't fuse properly. And the fillet fracture test is similar, but for fillet welds. You basically force the fillet weld to break open, usually through its throat. Again, you examine that broken surface for things like lack of fusion at the root, cracks, porosity, that sort of thing.
So they give a very direct visual confirmation of internal soundness.
Exactly. They show the presence and type of gross defects. Now, look, those kinds of defects absolutely can affect things like ductility, toughness, or fracture resistance. But those specific properties usually need more precise quantitative lab tests, like a tensile test for ductility or a Charpy impact test for toughness. Nick break and fillet fracture are more about that general check. Is the weld basically sound inside? Are there major flaws? It's assessing that overall weld quality.
Okay.
Which leads to maybe a final interesting question for you to ponder. Why do we still rely on these fairly simple destructive tests when we have such advanced non-destructive methods like X-ray or UT available now?
That is a good question, especially with how good NDT has become. Is it maybe about the undeniable proof? Seeing the actual fracture surface with your own eyes gives you something NDT maybe can't quite capture the same way?
That's a big part of it, definitely. The visual evidence is unequivocal.
Or maybe it's just simpler and cheaper sometimes, like for quickly checking a welder's test piece or qualifying a procedure initially.
Both points are spot on. NDT is powerful for finding flaws, but breaking it open gives you that absolute visual confirmation of internal integrity, the fracture path, the nature of the defect. It's invaluable for understanding how the weld behaves. And yes, for many situations like initial welder quals or procedure development, the simplicity, the directness, the cost-effectiveness of these tests, they're still indispensable. They give you a quick, clear look at the quality without needing complex gear or interpretation. They work alongside NDT, really.
Fascinating. Yeah, sometimes the most direct method is still the most revealing, isn't it?
Oh.
Wow, what a session. That was a proper deep dive for our first CSWIP 3.1 exam prep. We covered some really key areas today. We started with welder qualification, remembering it's primarily about testing the welder's skill. Then we got into heat input, nailing down that crucial unit, kilojoule, and why it matters so much for the microstructure.
Yes, controlling that cooling rate.
Then visual inspection of the root bead, focusing hard on checking for lack of root penetration because it's so structurally critical.
Absolutely foundational.
We navigated the standards, identifying EN 11637 as the go-to for visual NDE of fusion welds.
Key for consistency.
And finally, we looked at those destructive tests, nick break and fillet fracture, understanding they're primarily for assessing overall weld quality by revealing internal flaws.
That's a great summary. And hopefully you haven't just got answers today. You've picked up the why behind them, the principles. That's the kind of knowledge that's really valuable for any inspector, aspiring or experienced. It lets you make better judgments out in the field.
Couldn't agree more. And maybe a final thought for you listening. As you go forward, keep thinking about how these specific details connect. How does knowing about heat input units or the right visual standard or why lack of penetration is bad, how does it all fit together in the real world to ensure safety and structural integrity? How do all these insights build up into that comprehensive understanding you need? That's the real goal, isn't it? Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep asking questions. We'll catch you on the next one.